Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Agency Automators. As usual, I have my co-host, Mr. Noah Lerner. Noah, what's going on, buddy?
I'm really excited to be here another Friday afternoon. Crazy
Totally.
week in SEO land. I'm finally over imposter syndrome. It's really amazing. I had this week we dealt with an infinite crawl trap that we found and fixed within 24 hours, which was super baller. We also found a broken robots.txt file that was excluding all JavaScript and CSS on a really big site, and we were able to fix that issue really quickly. So it was like one of those moments where you're like, "Shit, I know what I'm doing. This is baller." So it was a good week.
I love it. And we also have Mr. Cody West here from Assisted Reach. Cody, how you doing?
Doing awesome. Super pumped to spend the next hour with you guys talking SEO and doing a little bit of geeking out.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know Cody, he has been working on this super duper cool report called the Link Intelligence Report. I've had the opportunity to take a look at it and poke around, and it absolutely blew my mind. So once I saw it, I knew we had to have him on the show. So Cody, mind giving us kind of like a quick introduction as to what the intelligence report is all about?
Yeah, sure. So it's a report that answers these questions about link building that it seems like anyone who's ever been involved in link building has. If you're a senior level manager, you want to know, why do we even need to build backlinks? If you're not really deeply entwined in the SEO world. If you are entwined in the SEO world, then it's, how many links do we need to build? At which rate do we need to build them? And then how much is that going to cost? And then ultimately, the goal of the report is to use a lot of the output to allow you to determine what the return on investment of link building is, and whether or not it makes sense for your business and what your goals are to become involved in link building.
That's super cool, and I like how it gives you the ability to answer multiple questions at different stages in kind of like the corporate hierarchy. So I know with Noah and I, we tackle like automations and reports with a single purpose and a single question. So I'm curious, what inspired you to make this report? What question were you looking for an answer on?
Yeah, it was at my agency, Assisted Reach, we uh, basically, I think, had that question: how many links do we need to be building for this client? And it was more so we could forecast what those links were going to be, and then we could price accordingly, right? And so it was essentially just scratching my own itch. And as I kind of dug into that a bit more, a million more questions came up, right? It's like, what are the quality of these links? Which links are topically relevant? Is this link better than this link? Those sorts of questions that can really help drive not just like the high level trajectory of a link building campaign, but also like the tactics and strategies that you decide to use.
Sweet. I love it. And I know on our pre-call, even in previous episodes, Noah and I are huge fans of Google Data Studio, but you've chosen a different route. You've chosen to go down the Tableau rabbit hole. So love
Mhm.
to hear why you decided on that and all those pros and cons.
Yeah. So the first thing I will say is my favorite go-to BI tool is actually Mode. So if I had any tool and I could use any tool, it'd be Mode. Unfortunately, Mode, their white labeling solution is really expensive. It's I think it's like 25 grand or something. Um, and so yeah, yeah. So that was kind of off the table for something that I was just kind of like scoping out and building. And so the reason I chose Tableau over Data Studio, I think number one reason is higher perceived value. The reports just look, in my opinion, a lot better. There's and a little bit more polished. And so that's, I think, one of the main reasons. Reason number two is it's much easier to build what you're trying to build in Tableau than it is in Data Studio. Not to say Data Studio is bad by any means. Like, I use that for a lot of other things. It's just when you're doing, like, if you have pretty complex queries, and like a lot of date logic and that sort of thing, in my opinion, easier to use Tableau than fiddling around with the calculated fields and such in Data Studio. So I think you could build the Link Intelligence report in Data Studio. It's just I picked Tableau initially for some small reasons, but I wouldn't say it's that big of a deal. It's not really about the tool. It's about, can you get to what you want to get to?
Interesting. Noah, it looks like you have a question.
I feel like it's so basic, but what's the cost for running Tableau for an agency? Ballpark.
So for a creator license, it's $70 a month.
It's cheap.
So yeah, it's super cheap. And then you can get additional licenses, I believe, for like $43. So if you have people helping you, then you buy them the licenses. The bummer part, the thing I do not like about Tableau is it's all desktop based. So you have to download Tableau desktop and do all your work on Tableau desktop, and you can't really be working on a report with more than one person. It's like sending Excel files around rather than sharing a Google Sheet.
Are there size limitations for data? Can you deal with like millions of rows?
Yeah, so all of my logic and whatnot, it's not built in Tableau, it's built in BigQuery. And then I have CSVs that BigQuery feeds to the Tableau file. And so but because of the complexity, it's just a lot of logic. I didn't want to have all that logic live in Tableau. It's much easier to have a BigQuery script, have that have that live in DBT. So you have version control, and then go from there.
So I'm not sure if you saw, but both of our faces lit up when you mentioned DBT, because like we both use it, but we don't know a lot of other people using it. So like, totally.
Oh, nice.
So what I heard was crack. I was like, he said DBT, and I heard crack.
Oh my god!
Sorry.
Yeah, DBT is amazing. It's such an amazing tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Shadow heard crack too. He came right over. Sorry. So you pipe data in, and then you do your transformations in DBT. That's fascinating. So do you like to do it at the command line, or are you using the web version of DBT?
Yeah, I'm using their web app. Yep.
Yeah. What blew me away was the moment that I realized that I could have my own build on a client by client basis, and then store that in my own GitHub account, and then spin it up right away. And you're like, holy shit, I have a data pipeline. And it takes you have to change 3 things on the config file, and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
I was like so blown away by the power of it.
Yeah, my favorite part about DBT is you don't have to write any of your own create, insert, delete, truncates. You just use Jinja to do all that.
Yeah.
So it's so much cleaner than I just have nightmares of like when I used to work as an analyst of doing big deletes and that cleaning tables and that sort of thing, and having to roll back commands and that sort of thing. So yeah, DBT's been a huge game changer.
Huh. Are you doing clustering inside BigQuery, or are you just doing partition by date, or how are you managing data so that you're managing your budget?
So I pretty much use whatever the ETL tool decides to do. So I use Stitch, Fivetran, Dayton, data virtuality, and then I've tested Blendo too a little bit. And all of those do it differently. Fivetran is by far the most superior from like a tech, customer service, that sort of thing, but they're like 10, 20x the cost of all the other tools, which, I mean, there's a trade-off there. It just depends. I love how, like with Stitch, you have to write your own unnests and unnest a lot of those arrays as they come in. But with Fivetran, they're doing all that for you. So like I prefer not to mess with any of that stuff. I just basically, however the data comes in, I create staging tables, unnest it or whatever, and then use it in my transformations.
Got it. And what data sources are you using day in, day out? What channels?
So it really, like, for the Link Intelligence report, it's just Hrefs and Majestic. But for like client reporting and that sort of thing, it's GA, GSC, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Majestic. It's crawl data, so it'll be either Sightbulb or Screaming Frog. What else? Yeah, that's probably about it. That's the most I use.
Huh. The tech stack of a link builder is crazy expensive.
It is, yeah. I mean, we don't honestly, like, we don't even build at my agency. We don't do link building in house. We did it for a little bit. There's just so many other companies that have figured it out and do it at scale way better. So we kind of just stick to the more analytics side. Like that, my background is in like data. I guess the correct term would be, especially because you guys are familiar with DBT, it would be analytics engineering. So yeah, that's a lot of the processes and deliverables that we're creating have like a very like data heavy background.
Interesting. So how did you get into SEO and link building in that?
Yeah, it was probably like how a lot of people got into it. It was like, man, how do I figure out a way to make some money online, some passive income? So I first started building affiliate sites, and that's kind of how I started getting my feet wet. And that was right after graduating college. And during that time, I was working as a data analyst. So it was like I was already getting that skill set, and then I was at night and in the mornings before work, I was learning SEO and marketing. Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah, what about you guys? How did you guys get into SEO?
Noah?
You first, sir.
I took a mentorship program that was part of a conference I went to in high school, and it taught you everything about running an online business. So, one week would be copywriting, another one would be email, another one would be like HTML, SEO, and all that good stuff. So by the end of it, you would have a website up and running. So I, for some reason, ended up selling ebooks on how to potty train your puppy in high school. Super random. Don't ask me how I came to that conclusion of a topic, but yeah, did that, and since then I've just been hooked.
Nice.
I started building websites in 2001 and was building for a lot of local clients. And I read, do you remember that website with the little spiral bound? I think it was SEO book back in 2007 or 5, 6, and 7. Mm-hmm. And following all the stuff that I learned there, I was able to get all my client sites to rank #1 for all their like targeted searches. And that was really it. And then it went to mobile design, and then learned all my ways around running a business successfully for a local bike shop that I managed. And then moved to Colorado in 14, and started becoming full-time, like a web marketer at that point. And then started doing my own SEO as founded a company called Bike Shop SEO in 2016. And that's when I got to do SEO full-time starting then, and running my own agency. And, it was really like trial by fire, like learned so much on the fly, just a radical amount about everything having to do with digital marketing. And Jordan and I actually sat together. Someone asked me earlier today, like, hey, how'd you guys get together anyway? And it was, we sat next to each other at MozCon Local in 2017. And the joke is I started blabbing, he started laughing, and then we got along famously.
That's awesome.
Does that sound about right, Jordan?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice.
Sorry for the extended story.
No, that's cool. I totally relate to what you're saying, Noah, and in that it's like trial by fire. But I think like if you're going to get good in this industry, you have to be able to learn on the fly like that. It's like there's no degrees. It's pretty much you get to learn as much as you want to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I respect that.
And you have to be introspective all the time. Like, oh shit, that just happened. And then it's like, okay, so what just happened, and how could I have not gone down that road again? And trying to really apply all the lessons all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, it's constantly changing too. So you can't, all right, I know enough now, I'm going to stop. It's like 6 months down the road, things are going to change, and you're going to have to learn what you missed out over that 6 months.
Speaking of, let's get back to this report because I want to know more about your itch that you were trying to scratch, and I want to know what your high-level takeaways were once you developed a tool to answer all your questions. A, should we be devoting 70% of our resources towards building links? Is that, I mean, like, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, let me pull up the report, and I can walk you through kind of like how I was thinking about this.
Yeah,
Can you guys see this?
totally.
Yep.
Perfect. Cool. So when it comes to links, there's like two ways you need to think about this to get an accurate picture. The first is, and I'm talking from like a ranking perspective. There can be, let's say, for example, you have an e-commerce store and you sell shoes, and you're like, man, I have 10 links to this page. Amazon's ranking #1, but they have 0 links. Like, why are they linking? Or why are they ranking? And obviously the answer is because they are a massive a site that has tons of links pointing to other pages, and then that link equity is then distributed throughout their website. And so the link equity that page is getting is more than the 10 links that your page is ranking with. And so where that comes into play is I call it the domain level analysis and then the page level analysis. So the domain level is looking at all of the referring domains that are pointing to every single page on a website. And then the page level is essentially at the keyword level. So it's how many links does this one URL have, and for a certain keyword that I'm trying to rank for. And so the first thing was like, all right, let's plot backlink velocity for all of our competitors. Let's actually make this. So we'll assume here Scribe Writing is the client, and then their 2 top competitors are Kindlepreneur and selfpublishingschool.com. And so let me change this. So here's, this report was run a while ago. So if you check this in Ahrefs, these are going to be off now, but this is the total number of referring domains over time for each site. And so you could see, all right, Scribe has 855 at this point, and then their biggest competitor, Kindlepreneur, has 1,435. Down here's the link gap. So it's about a 550 or so difference between the two. And then this is broken out by domain rating bucket, so you could get a sense of authority. But the problem with like this view is that there's no sense of link quality, right? You don't, there's great links in there, and then there's also scraper sites and, low quality links. And so what I created is a quality flag. And so this quality flag pulls only links through that have at least a DR20, 1,000 organic traffic per month, and then their follow links. And so this shows you like what you would deem as a link that's quality. And so you could see that link gap decreases quite a bit. And so this is like a good high level. All right, if we want to catch up to our competitors from a domain authority perspective, domain authority, it's an SEO word, but I think like the concept that it represents is accurate, So I'll use domain authority here. But we all know that domain authority is not a real thing in the Google world. And so, all right, let's say we need 53 links because this is what the link gap is. The report, I'd plug in 53 here, but this isn't telling the full picture because it's going to take us some time to build 53 links. And during that time, our competitors are also going to be building links. So if I build 53 links and then our competitors build 30, I'm still going to be 30 links behind. And so that's where this link velocity comes in. So what this is showing is the number of links that each one of these websites are building per month on average over the last 12 months. And then to account for outliers, I'm also showing the median. And so what I like to do here is just take the difference between the max and whatever the client is. So I take 22 minus 12, which is 10. And then I take 24 minus 11, which is 13. And so in this case, I would say that the link velocity is 13. So I plug that in, and then there's just like a little formula on the back end that will calculate how many links you need per month if you wanted to close the link gap in 12 months. So if you want to have the same number of quality links as self-publishing school in this case, you would need to build 17 links per month for 12 months. And then you append a cost per link. So call it $300. And then this gives you a budget that you can use to essentially spend on links every month. And then, so taking this, on our website, we have a Monte Carlo simulation that takes a lot of these inputs. So it'd take 53, it'd take 13 as the link velocity, it'd take 12. And it would run 10,000 different simulations on a normal distribution. And then it would spit out like what it expects your ROI would be. There's one other piece you would need to get there, which is traffic potential. But I have an article on our blog that kind of talks through that. But yeah, that's the first piece of this. So it's like, all right, how many links do we need to build from a domain level perspective? Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions on that?
No, you are muted.
Shadow was making a lot of noise. So tell me what your experience has been using the tool and how you've used it to make money for your clients.
Yeah, so it's been great because it brings data to the conversation, right? Link building has notoriously been at a place where it's like, hey, like this is kind of what we do for our other clients, so we kind of recommend this for you. Or it's, what's your budget? And then we can make that work, sort of thing. It brings data to the conversation, so you know the range that you should be operating in. This is, of course, like pretty much any analytics, it's not an exact science, but this is much better than coming to the conversation without anything, you know? And so it's been super great for data-driven clients who really care about this stuff because they feel much more comfortable investing in link building. And then it's been great for link building agencies because they get how many links do we need to build? How much is that going to cost? Those types of questions all the time when they're selling link building. So if they bring this to the sales proposal, and this is how they're dictating what they're pricing, how many links they're going to be building, and that sort of thing, it makes it so much easier for them to land a client against a company that's not doing that.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. Cody, tell me more about the simulation that you're running.
Yeah, so it's a Monte Carlo simulation. So it's basically, it just runs various scenarios. So let's say you plug in 10 different variables and you say, all right, for each variable, this is the min and the max. Then what it does is it applies a normal distribution or whatever distribution you want. Like for certain Monte Carlo simulations, I'll use a triangular distribution if I want hard min and max points. But then it essentially just guesses a number within that normal distribution, plugs that number in, and it does that for every 10 variable, and then it spits out an ROI at the end. And so for the first simulation, the ROI might be 0.1. The second one, it might be -2. Then the third one might be 5. And then what you do is you just aggregate all of that output, and you can get a sense of like what the probability of you having an ROI between X and Y is. So it's a good way to essentially forecast that sort of thing.
Interesting. So then are you plugging in like GA e-commerce data or GA conversion data with that?
So I'm using a revenue per visit number. So that's what depending on the quality of the client's data, that's what I'll try and get to. So sometimes there's a lot of like extraction where you're not really sure what the revenue per visit number is, but you can guess a range, and then you use revenue per visit is a variable within that ROI calculation, and you run a normal distribution on that too. So it's like some of the scenarios will have a very low RPV, and then some of the scenarios will have a really high RPV.
Interesting. No, it looks like you're brewing questions in that mind to
Well,
yours right now.
definitely. So we use a really simple revenue model, which is just revenue equals traffic times conversion rate times average order value. When we try and make all three things get bigger. I mean, like that's how simple I am about marketing, but it works. I mean, it works. But I haven't used revenue per visit, um,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
fascinating.
essen yeah, it's essentially the same thing as what you guys are using. It's just that you want a revenue per visit number when you are also using traffic potential. So like with link building, it's like, all right, this site is getting 20,000 visits per month. We think if we were to build all of these links that we could generate another 60,000 visits. And if we know what our revenue per visit number is before, um, then we could apply that number to the new 40,000 visits that we're going to be getting, and that's how much additional incremental revenue that we could potentially expect to be generating.
So that's forecasting.
Mhm.
What happens when you are no longer looking at forecasting and you do like a post-mortem on a program? How are you, what's the relationship between the forecast and the actual performance?
So the
I know that's
performance is,
super tough. I mean, I'm just curious because
yeah,
I
it,
have a hard time with forecasting like crazy.
yeah, it's to be honest, like I will almost never do like an ROI post-mortem for just link building.
Mhm.
It's just there's way too many factors in play to be like, all right, yeah, it was just the links that did this, especially because we're not building links either. So that would be something if I was just doing link building. And so I was working with a client, they weren't making any other changes, and all we're doing is adding links to the site. Um, but yeah, yeah, I wouldn't have a good answer for you on that one.
Do you have let have have you found that there's a ratio of monthly retainer that you like to throw at building?
Um, it's like if you're less than 2 grand, you're not going to get much, you know?
Right.
So like local clients, like we've worked with a ton of attorneys. Usually 2 to 5 grand is a good budget for them for maybe 6 to 12 months. And then depending on the market, you have to continue, but that's usually a pretty good place to start. Um, but yeah, beyond local, like it totally depends on the industry, you know? Like if you're in insurance, like I used to play in the like used car space, super competitive. Insurance is super competitive. And that's one of those things where like the link velocity number is insanely important because all of your competitors are heavily invested in link building as well. And so you have to keep a close eye on what they're doing and make sure if you have the lead that you keep it, and if you don't have the lead, that you're doing enough to capture the lead. Otherwise, you're just throwing dollars away, you know?
Hmm. Wow. So I know these questions are hard that I'm asking you, and
Hmm.
the only reason that I'm asking you is because I haven't figured it out yet. And I'm always looking to talk to people who are smarter than me, who are like two or three steps ahead and have banged their head against the wall trying to figure something out. So funny. Huh.
Yeah, it's
So, but
yeah,
your high
this,
level
this
takeaway is depending on the competitiveness of the industry and the value of the budget, that yes, you have to spend money as part of a monthly retainer.
yeah, so it's like if you think about like the amount of a retainer, right? Let's say the client's like, all right, we can't spend more than $8,000 a month.
Yep.
But then you see the link velocity of who they're trying to outrank
Yep.
being like it's going to cost double that. It's going to cost 16 grand a month. Then at that point, you want to be like, hey, we could build you links, but you're not going to see any results because your client's budget is double and they're doing double what you're doing. And
Yep.
so that's another use of the link intelligence report is it can actually save you from investing in link building when it's an uphill battle. You know, when you currently don't have the funds uh, to be able to get to the point where you need to for it to provide a positive ROI. And so at that point, it's like throw it back into paid or some other marketing channel that you know is going to have a positive ROI.
Got it.
So with going back to something you said earlier, Cody, with the simulation when it comes to uplift in traffic, what data point are you using to say, okay, if we rank higher, we'll get an additional, say, 10,000, 20,000 views? Is that from, like, say, Ahrefs, MSV data point, or what?
Yeah, so I love, and this is something not a lot of people have caught on to yet. Ahrefs traffic numbers have clicks per search built in. And so monthly search volume has historically been very inaccurate because there's different click-through rates on different SERPs. But what Ahrefs has is they have all that clickstream data, or I don't even know if they're using clickstream data anymore. I'm not totally sure. I'd have to look again, but what they do have is a clicks per search. And so they apply that to their monthly search volume numbers, and that gets you a much more accurate picture of the traffic that a given URL is driving. And so what we like doing is finding, let's say we want to rank for, so in this case, how to write a book. And then let's say like the first result is like a DR 95. And we're playing with a site with a DR 50. We're not gonna say we're gonna outrank that DR 95. So and let's say the URL ranking number 2 is like a DR 60. So what we'll do is we'll grab that URL, run that through Ahrefs batch analysis, and use that traffic number. And we'll do that for every keyword or main keyword. So for a main keyword is like our definition of main keyword is the keyword that drives the most traffic to a URL. So if you plug a URL into Ahrefs, you look at the organic keywords, the main keyword is the keyword that's driving the most traffic to that URL. And so we'll, for a given website, we'll find out what all those main keywords are, pull the SERPs. Then we have a little, like a formula that goes and grabs the URL that we think we can outrank, pull how much traffic that URL is getting. And like I said, do that for every keyword, aggregate that up, and then so sum up the traffic numbers, and that'll give you like a pretty good traffic potential depiction without with the clicks per search involved in that number.
Interesting. And are you layering in any client GSC data with that? So for example, like CTR or like any of that kind of stuff?
No, because typically these are keywords that the client's not really ranking for yet. You know, they're on page 2 or beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And so that data is not going to be, the only like accurate data you can get is from competitors in that regard, you know? And so, yeah, with Ahrefs, I think their traffic number is usually low too. So it's typically an underestimation, which I prefer, you know? So it's not, whatever the saying is, it's like promise, deliver more than you promise.
Under promise,
you know?
over deliver. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
Anytime. So you're a pretty smart guy.
Interesting.
I like the way you think. Anytime I talk with someone about data who's really, really smart, I've been having this feeling, and this has been a source of a lot of conversations, both in-house and with other SEOs, that like there's a massive limit to what we'll ever know. Like as you're talking and you're explaining how you're going after the data, I'm sitting there with my checkboxes. That's an estimation. That's an estimation. That's an estimation. And as you multiply, as you plug in more things that are estimations into a mathematical formula, like the range of accuracy just like explodes. And so all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a place where we're no longer ever going to even approach accuracy, but we're only going to have directional knowledge. And I've become okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, is that how you approach it too, or how do you think about it?
Absolutely. So the whole point of analytics is not to give exact numbers, it's to reduce uncertainty in decision making. And so when it comes to like making a business decision, you want to grasp onto anything that will help you reduce the uncertainty in you making a decision, you know? And I think like a really interesting thing to look into that illustrates this really well is it's called Fermi Decomposition. And so what Fermi Decomposition is, there's this guy, I can't remember his first name, but his last name's Fermi, or maybe his first name's Fermi, I don't know. But he was a teacher. And so what he used to do is ask his kids this like this hypothetical question. How many piano tuners are in the city of Chicago? And I'll ask that question to you guys. How many do you guys think?
25.
So
I have no clue. Yeah.
yeah, so that's usually the answer. It's like I don't know how are we supposed to know that? Like we can't look that up. There's no governing body that keeps a track of how many piano tuners there are. But you can kind of like use estimations to back into how to get to that number, right? So first it's how many people are in Chicago? Let's say it's 1 million to keep the numbers easy. Then it'll be pretty easy to look up like how many people play piano per population, you know? And let's say like 5%. So 5% of 1 million is, what is that? 50 grand? Yeah. Or 50,000, not 50 grand. 50,000. And so then it's like, all right, how many people who play piano have a piano tuner? There's piano tuning companies, so probably not 100%. Do we think it's 90%? No, that's probably too high. 80% is probably the high end. And then maybe the low end is like 50%. And so real quickly, you're able to get to an estimation where you're like, all right, it's somewhere between 50 and 90% of 50,000. And that's a much better answer and range to go with. And you're like, let's say we're deciding we're a piano tuning company and we're deciding if we want to go into that market or not. That's an invaluable range of data that we can use in our models to help us like forecast sales or whatever, rather than going in with nothing, you know? So rather than that's not perfect, but it does reduce uncertainty in our decision of whether or not we should go into Chicago as a piano tuning company.
What are some other nuggets of wisdom that you've learned in doing analysis at scale? Like, I love what you just said, and I'm definitely going to share that out. And what you just shared is going to be like a mini tease that I share in advance of the episode because it's so good. But like, I've been struck with the need to get accurate, especially when we're talking about ROI, because they want to know exactly, you know, like that's where they want to, where they being our clients always expect accuracy. So I try and give them accurate ROI numbers. Mm-hmm. Just in general, though, I guess what you're saying is that our clients want to make the right decision and we want to give them actionable intelligence, which doesn't have to be accurate. It's just interesting.
Yeah, it's like and that's where like communication is so important, you know, because like a lot of people don't intimately understand this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so like being able to communicate it and be like, hey, look, like this is the data we have, this is what we've done with the data, and this is what it's directionally telling us. There's risk involved here, but there was more risk involved prior. So this is allowing us to make a better decision. Whether or not this is going to pan out or not is still a risk, you know? And so that's like, I wish there was a way to get perfect information, you know? It'd be so much easier to just build things and then be like, all right, this is going to happen. But just unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in. And so it's just like setting those expectations and doing a good job communicating what it is and why you're doing something. And I feel like that's really the only remedy or antidote to the problem of imperfection, you know?
So do you have a process for problem solving?
A little bit. So a lot of times I'll always, before I start like whatever, writing Python or SQL, I will write in English, like what it is I'm trying to do. And then I'll write kind of like the steps. So like, am I going to need a function here that does this? You know, that sort of thing. And so I'll have like a rough outline of the project and how I feel like I'm going to solve it. And it's almost like written like an essay. But then I probably only end up using like 60%, 70% of that. Because once I start building, that's when the real like insights come. Once you're like deep in the weeds and you're seeing things and exploring, then you see solutions to problems that you didn't see prior. So I'll always do like a rough outline. Here's the problem. here's how I feel like I'm going to get to the solution, and here's what I want the solution to look like. But then it usually always changes once I start building whatever it is.
What about problems that don't involve technology?
I like journaling. I feel like at least my mind, when I'm thinking about a problem, especially if I'm emotionally invested in that problem,
Mhm.
it tends to race. It's there's no like rhyme or reason. Things are just popping out all over the place. But when I start writing what it is, if I'm struggling with something, or and it could be business or personal or whatever, I really lean on journaling a lot for that, where I'll just stream a conscious journal and start writing about it, and then usually I'll see a solution that I didn't see before. So yeah, I really like writing things down with a pen and paper.
Jordan and I problem solve together really well. We're kind of yin and yangs. And oftentimes when I get stuck on something, we'll have a Zoom together and I solve the problem by talking at him.
Yeah. Yeah, that works great.
Sorry, man. I hate to put you through it.
No, it's all good, man. You know me, I do the same things with you as well.
So I'm sorry to get us out of technology, but one of the things that I really appreciated, I've had a couple conversations with J.R. Oaks, and what he shared with me was that the the most important thing in SEO or digital marketing is like the power of critical thinking. Everything else is trainable, right? You can learn how to code Python, you can learn how to do PPC, you can learn all that stuff, but if you don't know how to think, good luck. You're going to be pounding sand for your whole career. So sometimes when we're in these conversations, it's like, I want to know how you think. I want to get inside your brain. I want to understand like how you solve problems, because it's clearly different potentially than how I do or our audience does. So I think that's some of the most valuable things to talk about. So you like Python, you like BigQuery, you like DBT, you like Tableau. What else is in your tech stack?
Uh, like I said, Mode is my go-to BI tool.
Yeah.
Mode's awesome. It has Jupyter notebooks built in,
Hmm.
and it connects directly to your warehouse. And rather, like what I dislike so much about Data Studio, Tableau, most BI tools on the market is they don't use standard SQL syntax for calculated fields. So if you're creating a calculated field, you have to use their language. And most analysts know SQL. So everything in Mode is SQL driven, which is really nice. So like, I'm not like, all right, how do you do a window function in Data Studio versus Tableau? You don't mess with any of that. You just know, all right, I'm using an aggregate and then I'm grouping by my SQL clause. So yeah, what else? Yeah, I'm not the best data engineer, so all the ETL tools are amazing. I love using those. Those tools have solved a huge like headache for analysts. Is getting clean data in your warehouse. Yeah, that's mainly it. Yeah, DBT for transformation and kind of managing version control and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a very very analytics or analyst tech stack for me.
So no HTML, no JavaScript, no PHP, like none of that other stuff. It's all like what are the tools in my quiver for analysis?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know HTML, a little bit of JavaScript. I would not want to write any JavaScript. It'd be literally like Googling every line.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I know some HTML and CSS, but yeah, it's like at Assisted Reach. Like I would never say that, oh, I'm the best SEO out there.
Yeah.
Like I see myself as in the slot of like analyst and SEO together. And so that's really what I try and focus on with my agency. Is there's going to be agencies out there who are much better at link building, who are much better at like diagnosing, dev problems and that sort of thing. But when you want to use data and analytics to drive whatever your SEO strategy is going to be, that's what I want to be kind of known for, you know? And so, yeah, that's generally that's why I'm focused so heavily on that tool set.
How do you use automation inside your agency?
Yeah, so I love cloud functions, and so yeah, so you can do some really cool stuff with cloud functions. Pull stuff directly into BigQuery, do a bunch of transformation, and then spit things out. So we do a little bit of that. Zapier, we're using. We have a really cool editorial calendar where we'll have this CSV that has all this data around a piece of content. So it'll have like the clear scope URL and what the title tag should be and all the secondary keywords, how long the article should be, what the category on the blog is going to be, basically all the information you need to create a blog post. And then we have a Zap that when we take a drop down or we change the drop down in the sheet to add to Asana, it takes all those fields and adds it to a Asana template and then assigns it. All the due dates get assigned out. And so that saved us so much time on the content production process or within our content production process. So that's huge.
So we've helped agencies solve that editorial calendar problem in the past, and that's a massive time suck for people. What process inside your agency was the hardest to achieve, or the most valuable once you executed, or the one you're most proud of?
I think honestly, like what does most, because all these reports are just like one-time deliverables, you know, the only thing really recurring that we're doing is content. And so we spent a ton of time building out our content production process, super detailed SOPs. Like I said, everything lives in Asana, but is driven by that editorial calendar. And so our content manager has done an amazing job at continuing to develop that. But we've gotten to the point where we're getting writers that are like, wow, this is the best process I've ever been involved in. This is so much easier and well organized than other companies I've written for, that sort of thing. So I'd say I'm most proud of that. It's great because it's a recurring revenue source for us. And what's great about it too is we can plug in any freelancers. So we have this big database of writers, this big database of graphic designers. We have a couple editors that we work with. And so it's literally send this person the SOP for the part of the process they're involved in, and they're up and running within a couple of days. So that's been great to have.
And are you doing 10,000 articles a month, or what kind of volume are you pushing if you're comfortable?
Oh, no, nothing even close to that. We typically do 8 articles per month per client. So 2 per week. Yeah.
2 per week. And what kind of length are we talking about?
Usually 1,500 to 4,000 or 5,000 words. So it's like evergreen, like high search volume topics.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Neat. I love content. What are you seeing as trends for needs? Like, how is the way I've been building content has been morphing over the past 2 years. And I know that intent is driving the form of the content, but what are you changing about how you're building long form? Is there anything specific?
Really leaning on ClearScope. ClearScope, we've done tests internally using ClearScope and not using ClearScope. And we've gotten better results with ClearScope every single time. So yeah, leaning very heavily on ClearScope. And then really initially when we kind of first started doing this, we try and like tweak things at the end to meet ClearScope and that sort of thing. And that just doesn't work. So everything starts at the outline. We need to know what the headings are, what we're going to talk about, how long each section is going to be. And we're using ClearScope to build that. They have like that section where it's like recommended subheadings. Here's all the terms by weight and importance, that sort of thing. And so when we made that shift, we started getting content so much better once it got to our SEO editor. than we were prior. And that's because the writers are the ones focusing on, they're the ones outlining. So they're the ones who are making sure that, like, we use an A- minimum for ClearScope. So like to get an A-, you definitely need that outline set up correctly so that you're talking about the right topics and that sort of thing.
Wow. Do you feel like you could learn the way it works using the tool for X period of time and then cancel subscription? You have to plug it in every single project because everything's unique.
I don't know. I'm like pretty disconnected from the content process now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have a good answer for you on that one.
Huh.
Yeah, I would leverage it because I mean I'm the like the data guy,
Yeah.
but someone like my content manager, who knows? Like she might not actually need it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Yeah.
Huh. Fascinating. Huh.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just want to do a quick time check-in and make sure that we're not running long. We're getting close. So what are some challenges that you're really excited to solve that are just beyond your reach?
One of them is a internal link analysis that I've been working on.
Mhm.
I got like maybe 90% of the way there
Mhm.
before the link intelligence report, and that kind of took my focus away. But I'm hopping back on that, and it's a link analysis. I'm a big fan of Kevin Indig's methodology, Tipper, True
Mhm.
Internal PageRank, and how he does an internal link analysis for a really massive site. I was thinking like, how could I come up with something that content marketers and like people who are just managing a blog can use to ensure that the link equity distribution from their blog posts and landing pages is optimized. So that meaning the blog posts that receive the most traffic or that landing pages that are the highest value have the highest link equity. And then also, how do I ensure that the linking, the anchor text and the pages that I'm linking from page to page are topically relevant. Obviously, the topically relevant internal links are better. And if you have a blog with 100,000 blog posts on it that are all over the place, you want to make sure that all of them are linking together that are topically related. And so I have a internal link analysis that it creates a report that allows you to really easily see where the biggest opportunities are that you aren't currently linking to.
So are you using natural language to do that?
No, so it's an export. Sitebulb's actually it was a Screaming Frog internal link export, but now it's Sitebulb. They have a few really cool things, like the placement of the link is super important. They have like this is in the header, this is in the footer. So I like using the Sitebulb export now. And then I'm appending things like topical trust flow. When I'm doing the crawl, I'm using XPath and parsing out the blog category. I'm pulling the main keyword and the title. And so that generally, like for example, let's say the main keyword is how to write a book. I'd parse out how and to and write and book, and then I'd look for those keywords in the content. So I'm also scraping the entire page. So when you do like a Screaming Frog crawl, you can export all of the paragraph tags, right? And so then I use a cloud function. That cloud function pulls the export into BigQuery. Then I have a query that runs, and it says, all right, is this main keyword in this page? Is this blog category the same as this blog category? And is the topical trust flow of this page the same as the topical trust flow on this page? And then if it is, it flags it. And then you know, all right, this is a topically relevant page. There's already a place I know I can easily add the internal link because the main keyword, the words of the main keyword are in the content itself.
That's pretty slick.
I'm going to have to watch this section again. So this reminds me of the one that we did with Dan Leapson.
Mm-hmm.
You should watch that episode. It's very funny. He was telling us how they develop knowledge around an entire topic area. And the way that they do it is they take a head term, they would then scrape all the SERPs, all being, I don't know, the top 10 or 20, 2 pages maybe. They're grabbing all the featured snippets, all the people also asked, the related queries. They go to all of those pages, they find all the search terms on those pages, and then they do that same process and they turn that crank twice. So they've turned one keyword into basically 25,000 or something obscene, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a pretty fascinating process. And when he explained it to us, I was like, okay, so you're looping and looping and looping and looping and looping. And I'm like trying to visualize that process. And this is really cool too.
Yeah, that's how Nick Eubanks, he builds his TAM very similar to that, where he starts with like a seed term and then he just blows out that list.
What skill do you think that is not, what skill do you wish that other new to mid-level SEOs had that you don't see enough of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be biased, but I would say SQL. It's just so much easy. It's so much easier to reproduce logic and share logic than when you're passing around Google Sheets. And I've seen like a lot of agency deliverables, and there's just massive Google Sheet formulas and that sort of thing. And if someone doesn't understand the sheet or what it's doing and they mess something up, then it takes hours to diagnose that. When you're looking at code, you don't run into that problem. And so, yeah, in my opinion, like the more that can be done, it's very similar to like the what's their name? The guys who created DBT, Fishtown Analytics. Yeah. So those guys are like a huge believer of code over anything like UI, you know, and that's because it's just so much more readable. You can get so much more information passed between people in much smaller screen space, and so that's why like pretty much all of the deliverables we do are in BigQuery and or Python. It's a mix between Python, BigQuery, and Google Sheets, just depending on whatever we need to do. Most of the like deliverables that we're handing a client is a Google Sheet or a Tableau file, but all of the like work that is done is either in Python or BigQuery. And in my opinion, it's just, like I said, it's just a much more scalable approach to creating deliverables.
Word. And my question was specifically for SEOs, and you went straight to a technical skill. And you, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, if I was looking for an SEO to hire, like, and they knew nothing about SEO, but they had some SQL chops, I'd much rather have that than someone who would be the reverse, someone who knows a bunch about SEO. One, because like, I mean, out of all honesty, it's like, I don't even know if the things I believe to be true in SEO are actually true. Like, that's just the name of the game, you know? And so, yeah, in my opinion, it's all that other stuff can be taught much easier than it would be to teach the technical stuff. But I mean, if we're talking, I'm gonna have someone who's doing my technical audits, then it's probably I'd rather have a developer skill set, you know? And so I'd rather teach the developer SEO at that point, but they have JavaScript and PHP and HTML.
Cool. Neat. Well, this has been really good. This is a really great organic conversation. I'd love to stay connected. And that's one of the coolest things about Agency Automators is we seem to like drop in and out of our guests' lives, which has been really amazing. No, and I don't mean like stalker style. I just mean like, you know, like like I'm going to get to hang out with David in a little bit. And it's just super cool where I've always thought of this dude as like the Greek god of tech SEO developer stuff. And it's just amazing to be able to spend time with you guys. I feel pretty blessed. I don't know how you feel, Jordan.
Yeah, it's really cool to kind of see behind the curtain and how, you know, the A players actually play.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, I love the theme and the kind of the format that you guys have going on. This was definitely the most fun podcast that I've done. or show, or whatever you guys want to call it. But yeah, it's I think that in the SEO space, there's like a shift towards more technical skills. Like you almost have to be more technical nowadays than you did 10 years ago. And that it seems like that's kind of what you guys like talking about, and talk about quite a bit. So yeah, I think that message needs to get out more, rather than like, here are the 5 things you can do to improve your content, those types of conversations. Yeah. So yeah, kudos to you guys.
Thanks a lot, man. Okay. Do you want to take us out, Jordan?
All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in to another amazing and insightful episode of Agency Automators. Cody, thank you for dropping God knows how many knowledge bombs. And Noah, thanks for coming on again. It's great to have you as co-host.
Thanks, Cody. This was awesome. Bye, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Cheers.
Thanks.